our societies have made it sound like money matters should be the role of a man, halas, period, and that's where it ends. And with that in mind, growing up, most of us, the Muslim women, were not taught about matters concerning money. It was almost, iyo kazi ya babako, he will pay the rent. Forgetting though that if you think about today's setting, yes, it is still a man's role to provide in the household. However, there's cases where a man can be rendered disabled. There's cases where your marriage doesn't even work out. There's cases where your man can die because you don't know. And you'll find women who are stuck in positions where they don't know how to move on because simply I wasn't taught about matters money. Welcome to Those Avoided Topics, the podcast where silence gets kicked out and real talk takes center stage. I'm your host, Ibtisam Habib, bold by nature, curious by design, and proud of holes in society's D&D science. Now, grab your cup of chai and let's dive right into it. Fantastic. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Those Avoided Topics, and this is officially episode 4. I am so excited because since we've launched, we've gotten over 1,000 subscribers. And so before I even proceed, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube, liked our TikTok page, followed Instagram, please do so because it helps just the algorithm boost us to more people. Now, for today's topic, I am so honored to have the guest that I have on today. I will tell you, you will get to understand why as we move on through this episode. But let me just say, from the moment I found out about the existence of this beautiful lady, I kidogo had a fun girl moment. So we'll not get to that because that's not what this topic is about. But why I want to say this is because our societies have made it sound like Muslim women do only remain Muslim when we are at a much lower level in terms of income in our societies. They've made this, in fact, even if you were to watch episode 2 and look at the comments that we get, a lot of people actually saying how it's true. A lot of you are only practicing Muslim when you are at the beginning of your careers. The more you grow, the more you it's almost like Islam is for poverty. When you grow in your career, then you like remove your scarf, you stop practicing, which is so sad to see. And that's why my guest today, Sumayya, is someone that I really look up to as Ibtisam. And I'm so honored to have her here. And so without me going on and on, because as I said, I'm a fan, let me have Sumayya introduce herself. Sumayya, please tell us who you are, what you do so that they can understand why I'm a fan. And then we'll pick it up from there.
Fantastic. Salaam alaikum. Good morning. My name is Sumayya Hassan. I am in Islamic finance. And specifically what I do right now, I am involved in Islamic investments, Sharia-compliant investments. So what we have is an investment house, which I founded. And within that investment house, we offer Sharia-compliant advisory to ensure that your business is compliant with Islamic finance principles. We do strategy and finance reviews, operational reviews. We also help you to structure your finance in Sharia-compliant ways. And then finally, we help connect businesses that need money with investors looking for Sharia-compliant and impact investment. So that is under Iktifa. That is what we do. And then separately, I also have founded a Sharia-compliant fintech platform. It's called Inua. Inua, which is spelled INUWAH. Connects retail investors, people with money, institutions with money, again, looking for impact or Sharia-compliant investments with MSMEs, micro and small, medium enterprises that are looking for money. So this platform allows the MSMEs to apply for funds online, and then the investors looking for funding opportunities or investment also apply online. I have, before getting into Sharia-compliant investments, spent a good amount of time in Sharia-compliant risk management. For a while, I was the CEO of Takaful, which is a Sharia-compliant insurance company. And before then, I spent some time on the board of the first Sharia-compliant bank here in Kenya. So now I am closing the loop, as it were, having been in banking, in risk management, and now in investments.
Fantastic. I hope that helps you understand, guys, why I'm a fan. How do you think the generation today can sort of start solving for that problem where we have been so crippled when it comes to conversations on money? And societies have also made it sound like, first of all, women shouldn't work, for starters. And I understand those who don't want to work, so that's fine. But those who want to work, how do we empower those? And those who don't want to work, how do we ensure that they understand money still? So in case, whatever they have as a setup at home doesn't work out, they know how to move forward. I've gotten people who've messaged me and told me their husbands are very abusive, but they have 3 kids, they don't have money. Where am I going, Ibti? I will stay here until, death do us apart and then figure out what to move. So I guess what I'm trying to say is these conversations are first like the starting point of having women understand their role better in societies when it comes to money. But what's your take on this matter?
My take is some of these conversations force us to ask ourselves, where did this rain start beating us? Because the reality is, if we look at the first woman in Islam, our mother, Sayyidina Khadija radiallahu anha, really, if we want to have any other example of Muslim women and money, she is my personal role model, I'll tell you.
Mine too.
Yeah. I mean, at a time when the community around her was burying little girls alive, at a time when women were being treated like an asset, here is this woman who was running an international business, employing men, including the best of men. The Prophet, peace and blessings upon him, she employed him. She financed the faith during a time when Islam was going through a very difficult period. She was a woman who had been blessed with everything. She had lineage, she had beauty, she had integrity, she had character. She was so blessed. And she had this string of people constantly seeking to marry her for one reason or another because of who she is. And so when we talk about, what does it mean for a Muslim woman to be in money? Let's look at her. There is a hadith that was brought down to tell the Prophet ﷺ that, Nabil, when Jibril alayhi salam came down to tell Rasul that Allah is sending greetings to Sayyidina Khadija specifically. Specifically. Why? She, in addition to everything else she had, was a wife and a very present wife. When the Prophet was in the cave going for his retreat, she would climb up Jabal Hira herself to take him food because she felt, I want to support him in what he's doing. I want to contribute. I want to play the role that I believe I should be playing as his wife, as his main companion in this journey. And she was recognized for that. And so for me, when we talk about, it's not in our tradition for Muslim women to have money, really? What tradition are you reading?
I think we confuse the Arab culture with Islam so much. Especially, I don't know elsewhere, but I know from the coast region, the Arab culture has been made to be Islam. And I think that's where that's coming from.
Now, even that culture, when we look at it, they had their own version of the rain beating them. Because look at Sayyidatna Khadija, what culture does she come from? Look at Fatma al-Fihri, founding the first university in the world. Look at all these other women, whether they were leading in terms of nursing, whether they were leading in terms of, they were actually, some of them were on the battlefield. What culture did they come from? So at some point, society did what society does. We maybe adopted cultures from other cultures. We started getting all sorts of things seeping into our cultures that then we held on to and made those our thing, forgetting our essence, forgetting who we are. When you look at the Quran, Ibtisam, when you look at the Hadith, the references in there, you see the reference to both men and women. You know, it's believing men and believing women. You know, the men and women who give sadaqah, the men and women who fast, the men and women, like we've been given all these rights, right? And these obligations to give zakah, to give sadaqah, the explanations around investing in wealth, for instance, they were not limited to men. I mean, the Prophet, peace and blessings upon him, even advised invest the money of orphans. Because otherwise, for them, because otherwise it will be eaten away by zakah. Now, zakah is a religious obligation. Now, what about inflation? What about all these other things that are affecting us? How much more should we be really understanding what he was saying so that we are protecting the wealth that was given to us? So that's why I'm saying sometimes we just need to step back and ask, really, where did this rain start beating us? Because it is not in our essence as Muslims.
Yeah. And I think it's also come to a point, subhanAllah, where our society has made poverty, they've made poverty like a goal. I don't know how to explain it, because you'll see when they look at someone who's wealthy, they're like, who labda hatoi zaka. Like they will start making it look like a negative thing. And I think it's time and people need to understand that wealth is also an amana, and it is actually a blessing from Allah. Like, and we need to figure out how to grow it, how to make it, and it's okay. We need to stop making it sound like if you are truly Muslim, then you must be sleeping on the floor. You cannot have a 6x6 bed. God forbid you live in a beautiful house, then you cannot possibly. Hizo pesa kajenge msikiti nayo. Like they have this thing where you must use all your money for the sake of Islam, and you cannot therefore live your best life in this dunya. It's a very interesting like balance where we know what percentage you need to give out for zakah. We know how we need to give charity, but we forget that sometimes you also need to dress well. You need to, and societies sometimes have looked at it and said, you know what? If you're doing, because no one knows how much, no one should know like the zakah you're giving, the charity. So they just assume, yule yuishi runda yule hatoi zaka. They must be doing things that Islam doesn't permit for. So I hope also we get to a point where people understand it's okay to be wealthy as a Muslim person. It's not a sin to be wealthy. And therefore, let's start the conversation on educating each other as women. How do we actually manage our money? So if we get into that conversation, right? I know a lot of people have come up with like rules and like some sort of guidance, right? There's a 50-30-20 rule. If you ask me today, and I think a lot of it stems from social media pressure, a lot of women, and I'm not going to talk about men because someone can talk to them about it. So I'll talk about the people that I am here for. A lot of women are living way beyond what they can actually afford. You find someone tell you, I earn 100,000 shillings in a month. Where do you stay? I pay rent 60,000. And when you start hearing this, you already know you cannot afford that lifestyle because you've already eaten all your money to pay rent. How are you surviving until the next paycheck, right? So are you able to then share like some sort of guidance when you have, let's use 100,000 as the amount here in terms of salary? How do you utilize that 100,000 so that you can actually grow, so that you can actually you're not waiting for your next paycheck for you to say, oh, imefika 28th, you're just waiting for the 30th, like sina tena pesa. Kwanzia now paka then, how do we live within our means, but also enjoy the journey? Because a lot of us actually are working month on month on month and literally cannot afford the small luxuries in life. We cannot afford to take ourselves to a nice place for lunch, for instance. How can you guide a young lady right now watching who's thinking, I work hard every month, but sina pesa?
Yes, very important conversation and topic, Ibtisam. Let me start by saying, as far as the Islamic perspective on wealth overall, what are the three fundamental things that we really must keep our eye on? Islam says this wealth is an amana. And so you have to be extremely particular on how are you acquiring it. It's one of those big 5 questions you'll be asked. How did you get it? The acquisition. Then the second thing is, are you managing it prudently? How are you managing? Don't be wasteful. Don't be a spendthrift. And then finally, are you distributing it justly? These are the three things. How are you getting it? How are you managing it? And how are you then distributing it? Because Islam has put rights and responsibilities in each of these. So when people praise poverty and I think that comes to the question of that there is mas'uliyah and accountability on how did you get your wealth. And so the question here is really be very keen and very careful on how you're doing that, because the questions will follow. So maybe for some people, the easier way to manage that conversation is to say, I better not have the wealth.
Not get the wealth at all.
Then I don't have those questions. Let me answer other questions, but not those ones. So perhaps part of it is around that. Yeah. But at the end of the day, when you look at the guidance, when you look at the Sahaba, when the Hijrah happened and the Sahabas were moving from Makkah to Medina, and mashallah, the Ansar, when they received them, it was like, here, can I share with you my wealth? Can I share? You know, what did Abdurrahman bin Auf say? Show me where the market is, you know? And he was one of the wealthiest people, you know? Up to today, Ibtisam, the waqf of Sayyidina Uthman, you know, bin Affan, up to today is still driving projects, up to today. And so at the end of the day, those are the three things we really should be worried about. How did you get it? How are you managing it? And are you being just in meeting the obligations to Allah, to others, to the you know, your beneficiaries when it comes to inheritance, all those. Now, your question around how should we manage?
Right.
So there are many different formulas people will talk about, but one simple common one is the 50-30-20. And people will say 50% should be for your needs.
Yeah.
30% should be for your wants.
Yeah.
And then 20% is for savings. Now, what is the difference? How do I tell? Is it a want or is it a need?
Yeah.
Maybe I feel I need to buy a shoe every week, you know? So the question I should ask myself in determining, if I don't get this thing, what type of negative impact will it have on my life? That should help you determine, is this a want or is this a need? If I don't get food, what is going to happen? If I don't have a roof over my head, what's going to happen? If I don't have health care, what will I... Now, that shows you that this falls into the group of needs. If I don't buy a new dress, Ibtisam, for this wedding coming up, really?
You've touched the right thing, the wedding.
The wedding, yeah?
Yes.
So will I survive, Ibtisam? Will I survive the social pressure of repeating a dress?
The dress.
Those are wants.
Yeah.
And some wants fall way down even on that list.
Yeah.
That one has to be really careful that when you're having your honest conversation with yourself and with your spouse, for those who are married, about your expenses, because at the end of the day, people look at, okay, I'm earning 100,000, but I want to live in a nice, beautiful house in wherever. All dreams are valid, Ibtisam.
Absolutely.
But move at your stage, step by step. So rent falls within your needs. So should you therefore spend 50% on your money on rent? What will you eat? How will you educate? Whether yourself, your kids, whoever else is you're responsible for. And so the figure that is given for rent is between 25 to 30%. Don't go above 30%. If you're earning 100,000, you really should not be spending more than 25 to 30,000 per month on rent. If you feel you really want to live in Hurlingham, you're in Nairobi, this is where I want to live. The Hurlingham houses will be what? 75,000 and above. But you can get a guest wing SQ for that amount, 25 to 30. You're still in the area that you feel you want to be in, but you have to leave, you have to stick to your lane, Ibtisam.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise, what are you doing? You're borrowing from your savings, you're borrowing from your food, you're borrowing from your education, you're borrowing from other things that are critical, just so that you can have somewhere to sleep, because the whole day you're out running. So primarily, you really have to think about, what am I borrowing from so that I come and sleep in a bigger room rather than I'll still sleep, but in a smaller room.
Yeah. And I love that, because a lot of people will ask you, so I don't know, you're telling me, yes, I need to live within my means, but what does that look like? I love that you've given like a formula in quotes that can work. 50% need. And I remember having these conversations with some of my friends, and I was saying, guys, I need food. I'm like, yeah, food can be the pilau you make at home. It doesn't need to be food from Hashmi. The need is food, yes. When it's Hashmi, it's now a want. When it's at home that you can cook affordably, it can fall within the need.
Yes.
So being able to then understand, it's the same thing. It's still food which you need to eat because you cannot survive without it. But where do you place it between when can it be a need and when can it be a want? And we all then kind of came to an agreement. Okay, this luxurious version of it is a want.
Yes.
And then we were talking. Now you've just talked about 50% being the needs, which is like your rent, education, and food. Now let's move to want, because again, we don't work just so that we can pay the bills, right? We need to also enjoy the money that we're making.
Yes.
When you're talking about wants, other than food, I'll keep mentioning Hashmi. Hashmi, please take your credit because I really like your food.
And please give her some complimentaries.
Some pizza chicken here and there, right? Other than like food, what else would fall under wants? Is that where we look at things like traveling? What else would be under wants? And so that we can enjoy that part of it as well without just making it sound like we're working to just pay the bills.
Yes. So a want essentially are those things that you do out of comfort, out of pleasure, out of enjoyment, hobbies, those type of things. And some things, the line between want and need can be very thin, like you said about food. A need, but if you decide you have to eat out every day, or even the level that you decide to pitch this at can very quickly move you into want territory than need. So for example, you need transport to go to work. That is a need. But do you need the latest red whatever car drives you crazy, that has been I really want this red Bentley, I really want this red tinted Mercedes, I want this. That is a want, Ibtisam, because you'll still get to work.
I currently really want a jet tour, but there
you go.
I hear you.
Yeah, so with that you can still get to work. Now go back to your 50% and break that down. Depending on how your breakdown is looking, maybe your need is actually going to be satisfied by public needs. Maybe it is that smaller car rather than this dream car. That can be part of what now is your investment and savings objective going forward. But at that particular point, your travel there, you really have to be distinct between need and want. The other thing as well is about clothing. You have to dress, of course. You have to keep warm. You have to be presentable for your work or wherever you're going. Must you wear designer? Really? Do you really need that Louis Vuitton bag? I mean, it would be nice, right? Maybe. But if that is above a certain level, as far as the reality of your finances are concerned, there is no way that handbag, somebody used to tell me, but the shoes call me, and the bags call them. They say her name as she passes by. You have to learn to put some blockers in your ears, because those are wants. If it is comfort related, if it is just because it makes you feel happy, those are wants.
I love that. A lot of the wants can look like needs, and we need to be very aware on that. Now, I love that you also already started talking about savings or investments, which is the last 20, right? Because just because I have let's say I drive a Demio, just because I drive a Demio today, but my goal is again to have a jet tour, it doesn't mean I will have to remain with the Demio for the rest of my life.
No.
That's where the 20 comes in, right? When we talk about savings and investments. Now, I'll tell you my personal thought. For the longest time, all I knew about that 20% is put money in a bank. And I was in fact, I was the advocate when we're talking with all my friends. I'd be telling them, have a standing order. Kila mshahara ikiingia, there's a percent that iko kwa savings, inaenda kwa bank account. Up until last year is when I found that, hii pesa kwa bank account, it just sits there and just depreciates and nothing happens to it. But I had heard of MMFs and all these things, but I always knew it wasn't for us Muslims because there's always that interest aspect. Last year is when I was exposed to now things that are apparently a Sharia-compliant investment, which was mind-boggling. In fact, I had a conversation with my brother and he just kept asking me, Ibti, are you sure it is halal? Because we weren't educated. We weren't told that these things exist for us. Growing up, the only investment that I knew Muslims could partake in is buy an apartment. But also I knew buying an apartment, if I want to buy an apartment in Kilimani, Kilelesho, I must have 20 million. My savings haven't gotten to 20 million. And every year that 1 million that I had in my savings, the value just keeps going lower and lower. So I am so happy we are now in a stage of our lives in Kenya where we can actually start talking about Sharia-compliant investment.
Yeah.
I'd love for you to just, first of all, share the difference between what is savings and what is investment. And how do we Muslims start playing with the two? Because it doesn't necessarily mean it's just one over the other. How do we play with these two?
Okay. Yes. So in a nutshell, savings is about security. Investments is about growth. And so you should save before you invest. Now, what does that look like? What you're saving for essentially are unforeseen events. You're saving for a rainy day. You're saving for personal objectives. You don't only save for negative things, you save for positive things as well.
Like that car.
Like that car, like your jet tour and the big house and the, all these things. And one of the things I really love, Ibtisam, is the amount of detail Allah goes into in describing Jannah. So that we know, what you're aiming for. And there are things in there that you're told that eye, has never seen. And, we can't even imagine and describe. But even the little that we are able to imagine in our minds is mind-boggling. It's so wow. Equally, on the other side, what to avoid as far as nar is concerned, right? And so for me, having your own vision board, painting a picture. What are your objectives? What are you saving for? What do you see in your own future? What would you love? I love to draw the linkage between that and the description of Jannah and what have you. Go into detail about what you want, your car, your house, your this. Furnish it in your mind because, as you see this, you start working towards it. You put your dreams into thoughts, which convert into actions, which convert into, you start coming up with a plan because you feel what you're working towards is much more concrete rather than, something that is so iffy. Oh, yes, in future, I want a house, I want a car, but it's so vague. Yeah. And so how much work, effort, planning should go into this so that you can achieve, right? You know what they say, Ibtisam, the more I prepare, the luckier I get. Some people want to tell others they are lucky.
Quote unquote.
Yeah, but what is luck, really? It is opportunity meeting your preparation. And so unless you're deliberate in the things that you're doing, then you look at others and say, oh, some people are just lucky. If you're talking about savings, your savings, you're looking at least having 6 months worth of your monthly expenditures available to you in your savings. Now, what does that mean? It means that because this is something that you can lean on or jump into very quickly should something happen, you have something that requires very quick access to funds, whether it's a lost job, whether it's an illness, whether it's whatever the case may be. It could be a relocation, but you're having to, organize yourself, whatever it is. You can't therefore say, my savings are in land.
Yeah.
Because then how quickly can you liquidate your land? Now, does it mean land is not a good thing? No, land is fantastic. But it is not what we are talking about in the 6 months. 6 months needs to be something that is very quick in terms of liquidity. So therefore, does it mean my 6 months should only be cash in the bank? Well, if you're going to have 6 months cash in the bank, nothing stops you from putting it in a Sharia-compliant fixed deposit, which is short term. and you can. You can have a 1 month fixed deposit. So that instead of, when your money is in the bank, Ibtisam, the bank is just making money off of your money. For you, you're sitting there. Yes, you have the security of it being in the bank. But why don't you earn something from it as well? You can put it in a short-term fixed deposit. And by the way, when you need it, even if that period hasn't matured, you liquidate. Some banks will say, fine, we'll pay you the profit up to that date. Some banks will say, no, sorry, we agreed a month. The month has not reached.
Yeah.
Fine. But at least your capital, your principal is preserved. Yeah. So you need to be able to have funds that you can quickly access for purposes of your savings. Ideally, let this be 6 months. Your investments, on the other hand, are about growth. Once you've put aside money for savings, start now looking at growth. And here, look at what are your investment objectives. Are your investment objectives to have a house? Are your investment objectives to have a car? Are your investment objectives to send the children to university? Are your investment objectives to retire and travel the world? Or maybe your investment objective is not even during retirement. You want to have a wonderful holiday trip every year. Fine. So that then will guide the different type of investments you should do. If your children are still very young, university is 15 years away, for instance, it means you can afford to go for investments with a much longer runway. But if children are going to university next year, then your investments need to mirror that, right? If you need to have monthly repayments available to you to service your repayments for the house you're building or the house you're buying, then your investments need to mirror that. So don't hear, people are now doing quail farming. Let me do quail farming. People have now gone into crypto. Let me also jump there without really understanding the basics around it and what are your objectives? What are you trying to save for? And right now, as you say, we have a lot of options available in Kenya for people to actually work through their investment objectives in a Sharia-compliant manner. This is part of what we do at Inua, for instance, and at Iktifa. We sit with people to understand their investment objectives, and then we connect you to investments that are able to provide the type of returns that hopefully will meet your investment objectives. With Sharia-compliant investments, just like with Sharia-compliant finance, there are 3 things that are fundamental. Number 1, absolutely no riba. Interest, there is no conversation around interest. The strength of the ban on interest, when you read how the Prophet describes it and how it is described in the Quran, you just don't want to go anywhere near interest. The other thing is gharar, uncertainty. Getting into deals that are so uncertain,
like a gamble,
patapotea, those deals Islam says no. And the third one is maisir, which is gambling. You hear people getting into all sorts of funny deals. When you look at it, what exactly were you doing in this deal? It's just a gamble. At the end of the day, there are all sorts of Ponzi schemes that are around. On the face of it, they look like, hey, this deal looks too good to be true. It probably is. Yeah, it probably is. And so those are the 3 things where you want to make sure you're really avoiding in a Sharia-compliant investment by being very clear, what exactly is this investment about?
And I think that's where most of us laymen get so scared with even the thought of it, because we're like, we don't have the knowledge on which one is a gamble, which one. And I think that's why it's so important for us to understand where you come in, how you do that homework for us, because I would need to go to university for Lord knows how long for me to even understand, is this riba? Because it might look is it riba or is it profit? Like I might not understand as a layman. And that's what I was telling you, when I was having the conversation with my brother, he just kept asking me, Ibti, are you sure? Because it will not be worth it for me to grow millions and millions, then only for me to find out, oh my God, the whole time it was interest.
It was interest.
How then do you come in to my life and actually either educate me first and then also sort of drive that conversation and help me grow my money without me having always waking up and, seeing my statement of account, then always worrying, Hii ni pesa halal ama ni interest.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And it's a whole field. Islamic finance is a very broad field. And the opportunity to come in and train people and just go into the details of the different Sharia contracts. Are you doing murabaha? Are you doing mudaraba? Are you doing musharaka? All those are opportunities that are there. The other thing as well is, if you don't have time to go through that detail. So for example, if you're deciding, I want to invest in the stock exchange.
Mm-hmm.
There's a company there, they're doing very well, they keep publishing this, they're on billboards all over.
Mm-hmm.
I think from my understanding, the business they do is Sharia compliant.
Mm-hmm.
I'm buying shares.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you can buy their shares, but have you looked at their financials to understand, for just one pointer, how much debt that company has? Because the amount of debt that a company has, even though the business it is doing is Sharia compliant, can mean it has now crossed the boundary of Sharia compliance just because it is too debt heavy. Now, you can wake up every morning going through their financials to see how is the debt still balanced. If it is non-compliant debt, is it below 5%? You can do that. Or you can come to people like us whose job it is to analyze and say, okay, what is this company doing? What is its business? What is its structure? What is its debt? Maybe equity portfolio, all that. And then we are the ones then giving the clearance, as it were. We have Sharia teams that also are looking at, when you're structuring, are you structuring this transaction in a manner that is Sharia compliant? You can do something which on the face of it looks like a brilliant deal, but the Sharia does a complete no-no. For example, Ibtisam, Sharia in Islamic finance is completely against transactions where one party has information asymmetry compared to the other. So you're in a deal with somebody where the other person barely knows what's going on. And you control all the information. Yeah? Information is power. And for many people, they would say that's a brilliant position to be in. I mean, I have all they don't know. But the Sharia can actually determine that the money you make out of that deal is not halal for you.
Because had the other person known, maybe they would not have invested.
Maybe they would have done a different type of engagement. You see, so the transparency is fundamental. The ethics is fundamental. The fraud avoidance is fundamental. And there's a misconception now. The audience may be mixed, so allow me to say this. Sometimes people say, okay, but this Sharia-compliant financing must be for Muslims only. It is not. It is for anybody with whom the values resonate.
Right.
Now, what does it mean? It means if a Muslim comes and is looking for funding through us, for instance, and their business is Mirah, that is not halal, Ibtisam. It doesn't matter that you're a Muslim and you go for Hajj every year. That business is not halal. We can't do it. But if you're a non-Muslim and you're doing a business that is a straightforward Sharia-compliant business, nothing stops us from helping you raise funds for that business. So what you're looking at is the business. You're not looking at the faith of the person that is coming to do
the principles of it. Lovely, lovely. I know we're about to run out of time, so. And this conversation probably needs like 10 different episodes. Maybe I'll try to convince you to keep coming back so that we continue. But for now, so we've talked about 15% needs, 30% wants, 20% savings or investment. So when I come now down to investment, because I think that's what was very new to me as well. And you've already mentioned that's where you come and play a role. Let me take this opportunity then, because I know this is where most of the questions are going to come through, and I always get questions about how do I find you or your team? How do we start that conversation? Is there a minimum amount that one can invest? Because that's also, literally yesterday I was hosting some of my friends at home and I was telling them how I had put money in a specific Sharia investment and I've seen my first statement and I was very excited. But so the question was, is there a minimum amount? Like, can I, like, how much do I need to put in for? So can we like sort of end this conversation with, how do I find you? Do I need to have 10 million for you to listen to me? What's needed for us to start a conversation?
Okay. No, you don't need to have 10 million.
Okay.
Yes, we can work with you even for amounts that are much, much less than that. It depends on your objectives. It depends on the different investment opportunity that is there. So we may advise that one could be better for you than another one. And our contacts, I don't know whether you want me to share contacts or you'll put them up somewhere. But essentially, if you go to info@iktifa, IKTIFAA.
Okay.
.co.ke, you'll reach us. If you go to www.inuwah.com, you will be able to actually even apply both as an investor and as an entrepreneur looking for investment. But the one thing I want to say, Ibtisam, is you need to start immediately. Don't wait until, after this is when I will start saving. After that is where you don't. Actually, the minute you start earning, start preparing for your retirement, start planning for saving, and start planning for investing. Don't wait, let me do all these other things, and then start immediately is what I would advise.
I absolutely love that. While you were talking about this, something came to mind that is always a conversation I have with my girls. So first of all, we'll put the links, guys, on the description so that you don't feel like you need to cram what that is. The last thing that I want us to close with is black tax. Where does that fall in? That call from Auntie Sahale that says, mwanangu jamani, gesi linkwisha, nitumie 10,000. Somehow the gas price usually just increases all of a sudden and it becomes very expensive. And where is it a want, a need? Where do you plug it out from? And at what point should we be in a position where we don't feel guilty to say, Sina? How do you manage black tax in our societies?
Okay, first let me say, remember where we started, Ibtisam, that about the amana in wealth, how you get it, prudent management, and how you distribute. So I really encourage that we look at the distribution in a very positive way that grows you. Yes, both through sadaqah and both through zakah. Zakah is an amount that is set. So that one is not a negotiation. Sadaqah is not set, but I greatly encourage, as you budget, why don't you budget for that? So that then it's not something that every month you feel I'm so up and down about this.
I know Christians have an amount where they go and give it to, but for us, Zakah has an amount, charity, there's no like monthly amount.
It doesn't. But if you read the verses in the Quran, if you read the hadith, where we're even told people who have passed away, one of the things they wish they could come back to do is give sadaqah, why don't you be deliberate and say, okay, X% for me in a month, I am deliberate that this is what I am giving away from my different angles, my different paths, whether it's my family welfare, all those things. So that's one. I would say be deliberate in budgeting because then you stop.
And is this under the want part or under the savings part? Like when I'm budgeting for it?
Yes.
Or is it a need? Like where do I put, say I'm deciding every month I will take 10% to give into sadaqah.
Yes.
Is it 10% from the 50, the 30 or the 20?
I would say that if you take your 10% and say, because who is sadaqah for? Right? Who is sadaqah for? At the end of the day,
for me, eventually.
And this transaction is between you and Allah. Yeah. So I would put sadaqah in its own box.
Okay.
I would just put sadaqah in its own box where I have a 10% going here to sadaqah. And then now I'm dividing everything else compared to that. So either the balance becomes my 100 and then I still have my 50, 30, 20 on the basis of what is this.
Okay.
Now, what does that do? It elevates your view of your sadaqah rather than it making it an afterthought. It really shows that this, it's a transaction between you and Allah. It's a priority, right? And I want to encourage Ibtisam. It's not only money that can go to sadaqah. Because if you keep having this relative, no matter what you're giving, there seems to be an issue. How about you give your time to sit with them and help them plan their
Empowered.
finances.
Yeah.
Because maybe the challenge they are having is just how to manage their own 50, 30, 20, you know? So rather than you being the plug whenever they are running out of, supplies, maybe you want to sit with them and help. And help understand their situation and help them plan better. Maybe you want to help them get a skill. Maybe you want to get them a little amount of capital to actually start something so that it's not a monthly thing. Because finally, let me say this, the sadaqah that you give while resenting,
even your intention is not right anymore.
You just burnt it.
Absolutely.
That is just burning it. Yes.
Yeah, because I'm not even getting anything out of it eventually.
What are you getting out of it? And you're
it's guilt now. I'm just sending it because you've emotionally blackmailed me.
And then at the back, I'm just talking, and undoing everything that I have just done. Why would you want to do that?
So from what I've gathered then, if I say the 10% is the amount that I'm working with, is that once I've given my 10% to everyone that I feel was right, whether it was an orphan, my own family, if a call comes in after that and tells me, nipe hizi pesas or whatever, I shouldn't die of guilt to say, sina mwezi huu, I'll consider you next month because then you will be part of my 10%, right? That type of thing.
And unless, it's a situation where it's an absolute crisis.
It's a need for them.
It's a need, and you can see really this is an emergency. Yeah. We have this beautiful saying of Jibra Khawatir that, at the end of the day, you're doing something for somebody, for them, not for you. You're looking at what is it this thing to that person compared to what is that thing for you. And repeatedly, Ibtisam, what that brings back to you is unbelievable.
Absolutely.
But you shouldn't be in a situation where you're always dealing with this crisis. And so you being able to say for this month, because remember your 20% you pay yourself, it has gone. You've removed that 10% for sadaqah, the 20% for savings is not there. You've paid rent, you've paid this. In reality, what have you really kept for yourself? So you're not being dishonest by saying, let me help you with this next month. Because really for this month, I have actually, the month has already been planned, budgeted for, things have already been paid. But if you budget it like that and you do planning in terms of analyzing your trends, Ibtisam, over the last 3 months, how much have I paid on this? Who have I paid? What else have I paid for? You should be able to pick up some trends in there that help you to plan better for the month coming forward.
I feel like at the very beginning and at the very end, we need to have a relationship with our money. We need to understand it, I think, first. Because a lot of times even you might come and ask me, so how much are your expenses in a month? And I have no idea. I'm more scared to look at my M-Pesa statement and say, nimetumia hizi. So I think what I'm gathering also is the very beginning, is even before there's 50, 30, 20, is to first have an understanding on matters money in your life. So I feel like there's so much here. Sumayya, thank you so much for your time. I super appreciate it because I know you're a busy woman. We've had to find ways where we can be here in this room. I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate the knowledge that you've given us. I'm sure I will go back and listen to this episode and take notes myself. So thank you. May Allah put a lot of barakah in your life just for the time that you've spent with us today. And when we meet in Jannah, ikwe hapo, we remind each other ilikuwa added kwa mizan hapo.
Thank you for inviting me. Wonderful conversation.
Thank you so much. And we'll pick it up from here. And I hope it doesn't end here because I've mentioned I really want to now understand more on Inua, and we'll pick it up from here. But for now, I know our time's running out. So what Fasana say, thank you. And then for our viewers, in case you're interested with this conversation that we've just had, we'll put in a link on the description box so that we can continue this conversation, because matters money are much longer than what a 1-hour episode can ever cover. And also, before I just leave, I want to say a huge shout out to Honor Quest because they're the ones who are producing this episode. So thank you. Stay tuned. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you in the next episode.